Hosted by you/throwaway_Wi-Fi's. I decided to get tested to see if I could donate my kidney to my wife of 6 years. We have 2 kids together, 4F and 2M. My wife got sick just after our son was born and now needs a kidney transplant. We checked with her relatives, but none were a match or a viable donor. Last week, I got tested. I knew it would be a long shot, but I decided to get tested to see if I could donate. I got a call the other day saying that I was a match. The doctor then mentioned wanting to do additional testing due to some information from the HLA tissue test results. I didn't think much of it and agreed. Then the results came in, and I was shocked and confused. He explained that because of how DNA information is passed down through generations, a parent and child could have at least a 50% match, while siblings could have a 0 to 100% match. It was rare to have a high match between husband and wife. I asked what that meant. He said that my wife and I have an abnormally high match percentage. Long story short, we're related. No, I'm not kidding. I was put up for adoption before I was born and placed into a family that moved across the country. I knew I was adopted, but we didn't have any information about my biological family. It was a closed adoption. I met my wife by chance 8 years ago. I was on a work trip, and she was working at the site I went to. We worked together for a week, exchanged numbers, and kept in touch. I was sent back there 3 more times that year, and each time we grew closer. I was given the opportunity to transfer there for a new, higher paying position in a different department than hers, and the rest is history. I don't know what to do moving forward, but I know it may be wrong. She is my wife and the mother of our kids. This post is probably going to get removed, but it is all true. Edit. Look at my name. All of my family is from my adopted parents. My parents adopted me 2 minutes after I was born, and their name is on my birth certificate. They haven't told me anything about my biological parents and don't have any information. As stated above, her family is not a match. Most of her family has low match potential or can't donate due to medical or other reasons. I am 2 years older than my wife. I do know that my wife was born when her parents were in their late teens. Update 12 days later. No, there was no genetic test when we got married. Our state stopped that in the 1990s. No, my wife has never been stuck in the dryer, but she once got stuck under the bed. Joke. The reason I did not go into too much detail was to avoid being so specific that my wife or I might be recognized. Well, the front page of Reddit didn't help with that. Thank you all for your comments and feedback. I didn't respond to them, but I did read all of them. The reason her family couldn't donate was that close relatives had some medical issues preventing them from donating. Examples include high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, heavy drinking, and more. The further out we tested, the lower the percentage of a match. I wanted to be tested because we needed to find someone. The doctor said it was unlikely but wouldn't hurt to try. I was freaking out after I got the news and had to seek outside advice. When the doctor said the percentage was abnormally high and that we might be related, I kind of zoned out and started piecing things together in my mind. My parents live 1,000 miles away. They've met my in-laws a few times, once at my wedding and again when both my children were born. My children are fine. My daughter is incredibly smart for her age. My son is a handful but healthy. The way my adoption worked was that when my biological mom gave birth to me, I was checked out and placed in a different room. I was there, but I don't know exactly how it officially worked. From what my parents explained, they were in that room waiting. They never met my biological mom in person. She only had a profile and picked them out of many candidates. I called my parents and told them I needed to know everything they knew about my biological mom. They told me that their knowledge was limited. They said she was a 16-year-old single mom and that the father was not in the picture. Also, I was born in a hospital 1 hour from where my wife was born. Like I said, limited knowledge. Growing up, I didn't want to find out about my biological parents. To me, my parents were always my parents. I knew I was adopted and that it was a closed adoption, so I figured it wouldn't matter in the long term. I'm not going to do an additional at-home DNA test through any of the traditional testing sites like 23andMe or Ancestry, for personal reasons, like the possibility of family finding out. The doctor shared all of this with only me, not in my wife's presence. Some of the additional tests were done through the doctor, including a CM test. I'm not an expert on DNA testing. They said it was about a 1900 plus CM match, which basically confirms that one of my biological parents is one of hers. It could also mean we are first cousins or aunt/uncle. I'm guessing her dad. When my kids were born, my parents brought baby photos of me and commented that my son and I looked a lot like my wife's dad. My son was easily explainable, but all 3 of us together are a different story. I'm not going to bring this up ever. I might look at my father-in-law differently, but hopefully, nothing will change. I just hope none of the family goes on Reddit and connects the dots. I am donating my kidney to my wife. We've started the full process, which takes time and a lot of preparation. I plan to talk to my wife after the surgery and after recovery. Together, we will decide what to do regarding our kids, whether we will get them tested or ever tell them. I will not be leaving my wife. I love her and will always be there for her. I made vows, and I will keep them. I love her more than I would a half-sister. Edit. I do plan on telling her after the surgery. She's not doing well, and I think this would be even harder on her right now. I'd rather she know that I love her as a husband, rather than turn her world upside down right before a life-changing and dangerous surgery, just in case something were to happen. Telling our kids is not a decision I'm going to make on my own. It will be something we decide together after my wife knows. Second update 8 months later part 1. People still think this is fake, and that's okay. It is my life, not yours. In the long term, it only affects my life, not yours. First, my wife and I went through with a transplant. We are both recovering / have recovered well now. My wife is the healthiest she has been since just after our son was born. I've tried to write this update about a gazillion times. Hopefully, I can finish this one, not miss anything, and give details in order. This will probably be my only update. Thanks to the people who reached out and shared your personal experiences and advice regarding the transplant. It helped. I stuck to my original plan. I did not tell my wife about the possibility of us being related until after the surgery. Before the surgery, my parents came into town as soon as they could. It really helps having a big family support system like we do. In the days leading up to the surgery, it felt like there just wasn't enough time in the day for everything. With 900 doctor's appointments, preparing for worst case scenarios, researching, setting up my parents, and other family, in our house to watch our kids, and just spending time together as a family, it was overwhelming. The doctors were fantastic and laid everything out in a professional but relatable way. They answered all the questions and concerns we had leading up to, during, and after the surgery, and there were a ton of questions. It was one of the best feelings seeing my wife hopeful for the first time in a long time. I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I took that away from her. In the days leading up, I decided I was going to write a letter to my wife in case things went bad for me, but she survived. I wrote her 6 pages. I have small handwriting. In it, I told her how much I loved her, how much she had changed me from the moment we met, and how she was my universe. But I also apologized for keeping a secret from her and lying to her. I went into detail about what I had discovered over the last week, how we might be related and all the evidence. I gave the letter to my parents to give to her if something happened to me. If neither of us made it, I asked them to read it with my in-laws. I also wrote other letters. The surgery went well for both of us. They said my organs looked mighty fine. The transplant worked out quickly for my wife, and her body accepted it. I ended up scratching my eye pretty badly, and they put an eye patch on me. So when I saw my wife for the first time, her first words to me were, "The doctors knew we were here for the kidney, right?" Recovery overall sucks. There was virtually no position that was comfortable. I felt like a baby because my wife never complained, was healing well, and was taking it easy. I, on the other hand, am not so smart. I decided to go against the doctor's orders, didn't take it easy, and ended up having to go to the ER for a secondary surgery to repair the damage I caused. Please listen to your medical professionals. Second update 8 months later part 2. During recovery, my wife got into TikTok and Reddit. Well, after some time, she found a little post that made it way bigger than I ever intended. Looking back, I should have been more careful. Thanks for all the interaction, and thanks to the ladies at our /2 hot takes. My wife loves you guys. During this time, she started asking more in-depth questions about my adoption. My parents were still at the house at this point. My parents answered all the questions. My wife used the excuse of wanting to put a memory book together for our kids and wanted to include a family history of us growing up, along with our parents who raised us. She knew most of this information but wanted more details. She asked her dad for more details about his childhood, how he met my mother-in-law, and whether my mother-in-law was his first relationship. She knew some of this, but I was learning a lot. Also, as a reminder, my wife was born when her parents were older teens. I'm older than her. He said no, my mother-in-law was not his first relationship. We ended up pulling out his old yearbooks from high school, and he showed us the girl who was his first real relationship. I knew she was, probably, my biological mom. I could see features that I share with her. He told us fond memories he had of her and said their relationship ended because of her parents, and he never saw her again. He tried to find out what happened to her but couldn't, before the internet. Shortly after that, he asked out my mother-in-law, and here we are, we got my father-in-law's side. Then my mother-in-law said, "Now let me tell you how it really happened," and proceeded to tell us a different story that was more believable. Nothing about this raised any red flags indicating that my wife knew my secret. But after that visit, I felt extremely guilty. She was healthier than she had been in years, out of the major danger zone. So I had no real excuse not to tell her anymore. It took me 2 additional weeks to finally tell her. She noticed I was acting off and eventually asked me if I was okay. I told her I needed to talk about something serious, possibly life-altering, and potentially a relationship-ending topic, but that I loved her and would support whatever decision she made from that point forward. She told me that wasn't a good way to start a conversation and asked if I wanted to try again. So I gave her the letter I had written before the surgery. She went from curious to happy, to crying, then to intense concentration, finally becoming unreadable. In my head, I had basically handed her divorce papers, and I thought I would never see her or my kids again. Our life that we had built felt like it had just been nuked. I'm dramatic in my head. When I get nervous, I pace back and forth. When she finished reading it, she took a moment, then came over to me, stopped me from pacing, and said, "Look at me, smile," with a genuine smile. Then she said, "You are the dumbest smart person I know," and kissed me. This led to a long conversation. She had come across my first post, after the surgery, and found it oddly specific to our situation, even though I had changed some facts and circumstances. She connected the dots and started trying to figure out if it was true, wondering if I would eventually tell her or continue to lie and hide it from her. She reassured me that it changed nothing in our relationship. She is my wife, and I am her husband. She said she will always have a piece of me with her at all times. Like many of the comments suggested, she told me that she doesn't see it as wrong because we didn't grow up together, we didn't know, and it's a bit too late to back out now. We decided to have our kids do genetic testing when they are at an appropriate age, mainly because of the unknowns from me being adopted. For now, and possibly forever, we are not telling anyone. We also looked up who we now suspect is my biological mom. What we found was that she had passed away a few years ago due to a drunk driver. Don't drink and drive, but I may have 2 half-sisters. So, I joke that I have dating options down the road if needed. My wife hit me when I said this. The kids are doing really well. All they know is that mommy is feeling better and enjoying spending more time with them, with the extra energy and playfulness she hasn't had in a while. They're doing really well. So, all in all, the best case scenario happened. The only things I would change are, if the doctors tell you to take it easy and give you proper medical advice, follow it. Also, if you are keeping a secret from your wife or significant other, don't. They probably already know and are just letting you dig the hole deeper. My wife and I are doing really well. We're probably the closest we've been in a long time. I asked her to marry me again. She said she would think about it, paused for like 5 long seconds, and then, of course, said, "Yes, I will marry you." I'm not as afraid as I was about family finding or seeing this post. I now have a goddess-like force to back me up if we ever get questioned. We've made contingency plans. Like I said, I probably won't update again. Thank you all.